Hey guys, what's up? It's Mike here, back from supposedly the dead after a weekend of food poisoning. Boggs is at work, Soul is under the weather, and I'm on my lunch break working from home. So, but they just dropped, James Gunn right at noon tweeted a video announcing some of their plans as of right now for the DCU going forward. It's about a 6-minute video. I've watched it already. For those who have not seen it yet, we're going to go ahead and watch it again here on the video, and then we'll break it down a little bit more after we're done watching it. But just in case those who hadn't watched it yet, I wanted to go ahead and show the video as well, so that way everything is in his words, and then we can break it down again, because there's a lot to pick apart and digest in this video. So let's go ahead and pull this up, and we'll get it playing. But as you guys know, I'm a huge DC fan. Been waiting for this on bated breath. I've talked about it on some of the other shows I do. We Are the Batman, Basement Lounge. Been really anticipating what James Gunn's going to do, and there's a lot in this announcement, and it's definitely, I said this on Twitter, it's definitely story first, and that's what I'm here for. But let's go ahead, let's play this video, and let's see, let's hear what James Gunn has to say in his own words.
Hey everybody, I'm James Gunn. I'm the co-CEO of DC Studios. So as many of you know, DC has been disconnected in film and television for a long time. And it's one of, our jobs, mine and Peter's, is to come in and make sure the DCU is connected in film, television, gaming, and animation. That the characters are consistent, played by the same actors, and it works within one story. And if something is outside of that, like Matt Reeves' Batman or Todd Phillips' Joker or Teen Titans Go, that it is clearly labeled as DC Elseworld.
So I want to stop there. I'm going to kind of break this down as we go. So a couple things to pick apart there right away. He's absolutely right. DC has been so disconnected across all mediums forever. Most notably was when Ezra Miller was first cast as the Flash. That announcement was made like the same day that it was announced that the Flash TV show on the CW broke all the TV records. And Stephen Amell himself was on an after show talking about it, saying that he felt that like it was kind of disrespectful to Grant Gustin. Like he just led this show to being like the #1 show in the world, and DC chooses that time to make an announcement of like, yeah, but he's not going to be the Flash in the movies. People loved. I mean, The Flash is in its last season now, but it's been on for almost 10 years. I think it's like season 8 now. So people were always kind of wondering, like, why wouldn't you just use him? And especially because of how beloved, like the Arrow show, a lot of those CW shows were. And there's been so much, and that's led to a lot of disconnect too with like Batman properties, how all these Batman themed shows were being made that weren't allowed to use Batman because he was only for the movies. And so hearing that they're going to do this and that they're using that terminology, DC Elseworlds, that's an established thing. Now we can finally use it as saying like, there are these things out there like Matt Reeves, the Batman, like Todd Phillips, the Joker, that like those are perfectly fine on their own. They don't need the connected universe. We're going to let those just exist on their own. That's DC Elseworlds. They'll probably get a nice little label in a slate at the beginning of the movie, and those can just go live on as they are. We've kind of known that was going to be a thing because there had been that report that came out that Matt Reeves was meeting with James Gunn about folding the Batman into the DCU, and James Gunn came out on Twitter and said, no, that's not happening. That's far from the truth. So I like that he's addressing this right at the top and saying these things here that exist, they're going to continue to exist, that are not part of our stuff. We're going to label like these things here, these are Elseworlds. They're just going to sit over there. Now we're going to get into what's actually part of this connected DCU. Let's pick it up and see what more James has to say here. Soul's asking, Soul's here. She's saying, is the Harley Quinn animated show Elseworlds as well? So having watched the video, he doesn't mention that show in this video. It does stand to reason that that's going to be considered Elseworlds because of just how I have a feeling you're probably just being facetious, Soul. But yeah, I think it stands to reason that the Harley Quinn animated show is going to be on its own. Justin wants to know, hey, Mike, know you're pumped. The Batman 2 is coming. I like some of what was announced today. Yeah, I mean, we know it's coming. We know Matt Reeves is right now hard at work working on both the Penguin show, the Cobblepot show, which is shooting, I think, right now. I think it just started production in New York, and that he is well underway in writing the Batman 2. So knowing that those are still coming and that they're going to kind of get to exist on their own is great. Let's get back into the next part of the announcement here.
Outside of the mainstream DCU continuity. Now, Peter and I have gotten pretty lucky in terms of the 4 projects that are coming out over the next year. First, we have Shazam, Fury of the Gods. Shazam has always been off kind of in his own part of the DCU, so he connects very well. That moves directly into The Flash, a fantastic movie that I really love that resets the entire DC universe.
So a couple things I want to pick apart here. We know Shazam's getting ready to come out soon. Shazam, the first one in particular, other with the exception of, you know, that weird post-credit scene and just some name drops and, like, you know, the picture of the Batarang, it's existed on its own. It's not really been connected to anything, and it never has been, hasn't really been referenced in anything else. So, and I think they know, like, at this point, the movie is too close to coming out. It's just going to come out. It's going to be its own thing. But also with knowing that the Flash is coming out, like all the Ezra Miller drama aside, all the early reports for like the last year have been that this Ezra Miller Flash movie is like next level good. Again, like personal thoughts on Ezra Miller aside, all you know, signs point to like this movie is going to be incredible. But knowing that it's going to be the thing that resets everything, that's kind of been in the rumor mill since like 2018. We know that there were supposed to be these scenes where, you know, we know that Michael Keaton's Batman is supposed to be in this movie and Supergirl's in it. The early rumor was that like they were going to use this to reset it, get rid of, you know, Ben Affleck as Batman and replace Henry Cavill's Superman with, and I forget the actress's name, as Supergirl. And then that kind of went by the wayside because we know that Ben Affleck has then gone back and reshot a lot of the things with Michael Keaton's Batman that were going to be in The Flash and in Aquaman 2, which we'll get to in a little bit. It's interesting to see that they are still continuing on with the idea of like, yes, The Flash is going to be our reset. And I think that all things considered, that's probably the smart thing to do. We've kind of known that was coming. I wasn't sure how dedicated to that we were going to be with this announcement. I thought maybe they were just going to say whatever, scorched earth, wipe the slate clean, let's start over. Still using that as your focal reset point does make sense. Soul saying Zach Levi coming out is problematic too. DC can't catch a break. It's a whole other conversation for another day. But yeah, at this point, they're just trying to salvage what they can with Shazam, with Zachary Levi's recent statements, and just get the movie out and get it done. Yeah, DC's having a hard time catching a break. So let's get into the next part of what James Gunn has to say here.
Then to move into Blue Beetle, a fantastic film about a kid who's a marvelous part of the DCU, and then into Aquaman 2, which leads directly into our next few projects.
So before we get into those next few projects, let's finish with what's coming out here. So we've known Blue Beetle's coming. It's coming this summer. I'm very excited about Blue Beetle. It's a very cool character. I think Blue Beetle really got a lot of fresh love with Batman Brave and the Bold because his episodes of Brave and the Bold were some really good stuff. And we know that Aquaman 2 now is still coming. And again, we know that Ben Affleck went and reshot some of the Michael Keaton stuff that was supposed to be in Aquaman and the Last Kingdom. And we know that that's coming now at the end of, I believe, the end of this year. I think it's December of this year. Justin saying, as a person who loved The Flash as a character, I hope the movie is good, despite the Ezra Miller crap that has happened. At this point, I think it's one of those things we're just going to have to just accept that it's happening. But again, if The Flash is going to be this big reset point as it is, I mean, we won't know more until the movie itself comes out, but it could very well be this movie comes out, it resets, and then we never see Ezra Miller again. Personally, I'm fine with that. We'll see. I'm also one for people getting second chances if they can get their shit together, but they need to get their shit together first. But anyway, we'll see. So that's kind of where we're at as far as what's coming out this year, the next few projects, stuff that's probably just it's probably something to the extent of James Gunn could only reset so much because there are legal contracts involved. This came out with Marvel when Disney took over Fox about how they legally cannot recast any existing X-Men characters in film until after 2025 because of how their airtight contracts were. So it could be something similar to that with DC, where it's like, look, we can only do so much resetting. So they're saying, okay, well then fine, Flash is our reset. Now let's go forward from there. So let's get into what James Gunn now has to say about the future.
Which I'm going to tell you about now. So Peter and I, along with a group of very talented writers, have started to map out an 8 to 10 year plan of what DC Studios will be in film, television, and gaming.
That's big. 8 to 10 years is a big plan for the future. And we're not getting everything for their 10-year plan in this video. There's no possible way. There's still probably a lot of things they've got to iron out. We're getting what they have available to announce to us right away. But what I love is that trinity of unity. We've got film, TV, and gaming. They want to have coherent storylines, which is something that even Marvel hasn't done with their gaming, because we know that like people love the Spider-Man games. Those games are fantastic, but the Avengers video game was a disaster. In fact, it's ceasing support for that game at the end of, I think, this month. If not in the next month or two. Like, they're going to stop supporting the game altogether because it was just such an unmitigated disaster that just could not live up to what people had come to expect from a Marvel Avengers property. So for James Gunn to say, like, no, we're going to loop the gaming into this storytelling as well, that is a level of creative storytelling we haven't seen from these connected universe things yet. And that's really interesting that they're willing to take it to that level. But it also speaks wonders to the confidence they have in the story they're going to be telling going forward.
This first chapter is called Gods and Monsters. Now, this, what I'm about to tell you, is a part of the first chapter. It's not the entire first chapter.
So we're moving away. So we're not going with the term phase one. We're going with chapter one, the first chapter. Again, Marvel doesn't have the lockdown on the phrase phase one, but to have that distinction is nice to have. We also know that he's saying it's going to be called Gods and Monsters. Now, that is a well-established term in DC lore. It's interesting to see that, like, oh, this, so like they're planning it out like that in depth. Like, we have a chapter. Here's what we're calling it. Justin is saying the Avengers game debacle still amazes me. It should have been success, but they botched so badly. Yeah, all the blueprints were there between the Spider-Man and Arkham games. Like, it should have been a no-brainer. Soul points out Star Wars does have gaming. That is correct. Star Wars does have the gaming thing. So thank you. I totally forgot about that because I've only played the first Battlefront and the Jedi Fallen Order. But yeah, so that is true. Star Wars does have the gaming thing locked in as well. So all right, so let's hear what James has to say here.
The first project is Creature Commandos. Creature Commandos is an animated series. I've written all the episodes. Something we're going to do that's a little bit different at DC is we're going to have characters move into animation, out of animation, usually having the same actor play their voice as who plays them in live action.
Now, Creature Commandos is a property I know nothing about. I know nothing about this group. However, looking at it, this guy over here kind of looks like Robot Man a little bit from Doom Patrol. I don't know if that is or not. Someone can probably tell me when I don't know. If it is, or Brendan Fraser, maybe. This Frankenstein-looking dude could be some weird amalgamation of like Solomon Grundy, but I seriously doubt it. I know nothing about Creature Commandos, but what I love is what he says, that it's going to go, if they can fold in and out of animation with the same actors playing them live action and voicing them. We saw some ground laying of this with like Marvel What If, where they had the live action actors, some of them, not all of them, whoever was available, voicing the same characters in the animated stuff that they did in live action. So it's cool that they're already saying, like, we're going to do this. We're going to have this and again, like this is a team of weirdos. This is a team of weird characters, which is something James Gunn thrives in. Because in 2011, when the announcement of Guardians, 2011, when the announcement of Guardians of the Galaxy came out, or not 2011, 2013, when the Guardians announcement was first made, I could have given a crap about the talking tree and the raccoon with the machine gun, and now we love them. Same with what he did with like the Suicide Squad. James Gunn loves his weird, obscure teams. Justin Toner is saying, I have heard of Creature Commandos, never read them. Cool character designs. I know nothing, so that's a corner of DC I just never got into. But yeah, cool character designs. Let's see what else. And I loved again that he said animation and live action, same actors folding in and out. I love that idea.
The next project up is Waller. This is a story of Amanda Waller, played by Viola Davis. Viola Davis is going to team up with members of Team Peacemaker, and this is a story that's been created by Crystal Henry, who did Watchmen, and Jeremy Carver, who created the Doom Patrol. It is a fantastic story that's out of this world, and I can't wait for people to see it.
So this is that first part of saying, like, so we're still going to keep Viola Davis as Amanda Waller, because no matter what you might think about Suicide Squad or any of that stuff, Viola Davis is Amanda Waller. Wow, it's great stuff. It's good stuff. It's perfect. So, and we're working with Team Peacemaker because we know that and I also forgot to mention Peacemaker, the fact that James Gunn worked on that as well. Peacemaker was an absolutely fantastic season of television, and I can't wait for more. So knowing that that's one of the things that's going to be hanging around in some capacity post the Flash reset is still going to be here, and we're going to get to learn more about these characters, not to mention the fact that the two names that he brings in, people who worked on both Doom Patrol and Watchmen, two of the most well-received live-action DC series of probably the last 5-10 years. I mean, I still haven't watched Watchmen or Doom Patrol. I know, come at me on Twitter. I have a lot of stuff to watch, guys. But I've heard they're absolutely fantastic. Justin Toner says, love that Davis is being kept as Amanda Waller lover. Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely. But this is an interesting idea of just let's delve more into who Amanda Waller is, because outside of Suicide Squad, we don't know anything about her as far as the DC films are concerned. She's still a fairly unknown character to the comic book movie watching public at large. And the way she's been painted thus far in the movies is almost like the old guard was trying to make her kind of a Nick Fury, and that's really not who she is. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do with her next.
Okay, next up is the big one, the true beginning of the DCU. This is called Superman Legacy. This is being written by me. I'm in the middle of it. I'm having a great time doing it. And Superman will be released into theaters July 11th, 2025.
Okay, so there's a lot here. So recently, James Gunn tweeted that he was doing research for this, and he was reading what we later discovered was the full version of All-Star Superman, which is a great run of Superman. I highly recommend you read it if you get the chance. It's a fantastic run of Superman. And we know from some of his first tweets about his plans for DC, it's going to be focused on a younger Superman earlier on in his time. Superman Legacy, and we've got a hard date for it too, which is not something I thought we'd get. I figured at most we'd get a year, not a month and a day and a year. And it's very clear that James Gunn understands, like, we've been denied a lot of Superman since Man of Steel, BVS, Justice League. Regardless of what your thoughts are with the Henry Cavill situation, which was an impossible situation that no one should have been put into. So, we can only just take what we know and just move forward now. I love that James Gunn has said, I'm writing this myself. I'm handling, I want to make sure, this is him saying, I want to make sure this character who has been kind of mishandled is treated respectfully. Soul says, will Boggs be over the fact Henry Cavill is not Superman of 2025? Probably not. Boggs will never get over it. I'm convinced. I love you, Boggs. Boggs is still so very salty about Henry Cavill being out because he loves Henry Cavill as Superman, and I do too. I mean, don't get me wrong. I am not happy that we're losing out on more Henry Cavill as Superman, but I also understand like I said, the circumstances were such that there was no easy way to work around that. So let's hear what else he has to say here.
Okay, the next thing is a big premiere HBO television series called Lanterns. This is a story of a couple of Green Lanterns, John Stewart and Hal Jordan, and we have a few other lanterns peppered in there, but this is really a terrestrial-based TV show, which is almost like True Detective, with a couple of Green Lanterns who are space cops watching over Precinct Earth.
Okay, I have been saying for years, I want Green Lantern space cops. I want Law and Order with Green Lanterns. I want True Detective with Green Lanterns. I love everything about this. We've known they've been working on a Green Lantern show for HBO Max forever. And I'm glad that they're still working on it. And it's going to be a part of this bigger story as well. Hal Jordan and John Stewart, because we know that this is also, for those of you who don't know, DC announced months ago their plans for comic books in 2023. And this is similar to what's going to be happening in the comics. For the first time in I think 10 years, there are going to be two different Green Lantern runs happening in the comic books. One's going to be about Hal and one's going to be about John. And I love that we're doing the similar thing with this Lanterns live action series, because space cops with Green Lanterns is a no-brainer. And I love that we're getting this. By the way, great art. I love these. I'm gonna full screen this for a sec. I love this Hal Jordan look. This is such a good Hal Jordan look. And this is a great John Stewart, but Hal with that beard. Oh, that's good. That's a good look right there. What's Soul got to say? It would be funny if Ryan Reynolds had a cameo. I mean, make it happen. Justin Toner says, I'm all in on Lanterns here. I'm a Green Lantern fan. I love Hal and John Stewart Space Cop show. Hell yes. Yeah, the art is nice. Yeah, Space Cops with Green Lantern. I need it now. This is such a no-brainer to me. I need this. I need this immediately.
In it, they discover a terrifying mystery that ties into our larger story of the DCU. Next is a big movie called The Authority. The Authority is a passion project of mine. It's based on the marvelous Wildstorm characters we are now bringing into the DCU and will interact with all of our primary DCU characters. The Authority are a group of superheroes who think the world is broken and they want to fix it by any means necessary. I think it's a very different look at superheroes. We're doing a
So before we go to he's about to go to another announcement. So let's back up just a couple seconds. I want to hold on this art here. I know nothing about the Authority. Absolutely nothing. I have never heard of this property. I don't recognize any of these characters from this picture. I know nothing about what this is. So if anybody's watching and can like a little bit, great. If not, I'm going to Google it later. But again, James Gunn loves his weird obscure superhero teams. And the just that concept of like this group of heroes that says like the world's fucked, like we need to do something drastic to fix it. It's such an interesting idea. And you can hear the excitement in James Gunn's voice. You can hear the excitement that he has for this property. That is a passion project of his, which again, I love and trust James Gunn. So I'm excited to hear that he's excited, because that means he's going to really take this project seriously and treat it with a lot of love and make sure as much as he can that it's done what he thinks is the right way. Justin says The Authority is an interesting choice. Never read them either, but I know people who love them. Yeah, I know nothing. My buddy Matt Hasso might know more about these guys than I do. He loves that obscure stuff. Soul says if James Gunn's find a weird group no one has heard of, he will do it. Yeah, and you know what? I'm kind of down for that. I really am kind of down for that. James Gunn seems like the kind of guy that probably could have made Eternals work. But yeah, this looks really like it's the neat design of some characters who I know nothing about. This guy in the front, like right here, looks like he's pooping. But let's get into this next thing.
Different look at superheroes. We're doing a television series called Paradise Lost. Paradise Lost is a story of Paradise Island, usually known as Themyscira, which is the birthplace of Wonder Woman. It's almost like Game of Thrones with Westeros, but with all of the inhabitants of Paradise Island.
So we're basically getting the DC's version of of Game of Thrones. I'm into it. If you can take the concept of Themyscira throughout the ages as a series with that Game of Thrones HBO flair and flavor, and maybe we can finally see some of the stories of like the Amazons versus the Atlanteans, something we've always heard about but never seen. I'm into that. And that's also a great way that if you do this reset that we're going to do, you can introduce your new Wonder Woman, maybe played by Alexander Daddario. I've been barking up that tree for years. Justin Toner says, describing it as Game of Thrones, but with the Amazons has me interested. Yeah, a Game of Thrones show, a Game of Thrones-esque series that takes place on in the world of Themyscira almost sounds like it just sounds like a match made in heaven. I think that's an excellent idea, because there is a lot of rich history just in the kind of Greek Roman mythology that ties in with Themyscira you can get into. Soul says, what I can appreciate about DC over Marvel is they aren't afraid to go rated R. Yeah. DC is one of those properties that even just throughout all time, not that Marvel can't and hasn't gone dark, but DC, I think, just kind of lends itself to it more. And I think that there's this misconception about like the idea of R-rated comic book properties, that it's just swearing and nudity and violence. And it's also just the themes, like the things that DC has done over the years, like when Denny O'Neil did his run tackling Speedy's drug addiction in Green Arrow, Green Lantern, hadn't been done before. You can't do those kinds of things as well as you might want to in a family-friendly property. Especially if it's on something like TV, you need to have, there are certain restrictions and things about what you can and cannot depict. So rating something R opens you up to addressing a lot of those concepts and concerns a bit more earnestly than you might not be able to in a more family-friendly property. Let's see what else is next here.
Introduction of the DCU's Batman is The Brave and the Bold. The Brave and the Bold is the story of Batman and his actual son, Damian Wayne. This is based on Grant Morrison's great comic book run. Damian Wayne is my favorite Robin. He's a little assassin who Batman tries to get in line. And so this is the story of the two of them and the beginning of sort of the Bat family in the DCU.
So, all right. I have a lot to say about this one. I'm going to try to keep it as contained as I can. I hate Damian Wayne. I hate Damian Wayne with every fiber of my being. I think he's the worst Robin ever. I think he is just an annoyance. I think his simple existence is very problematic. I think on paper, like the concept of Damian Wayne is fine. I just think the execution has never worked out for me. And I love Grant Morrison. Grant Morrison was my DC comic book guy growing up. Grant Morrison's Justice League JLA New World Order is like one of my favorite comic book runs ever. Soul wants to know, does my respect for James Gunn go down because Damian Wayne is his favorite Robin? No, it does not, because I know I'm in the minority on this. I know that a lot of people love Damian Wayne. I was one of the few people that cheered when they killed him off in the comics. But also, I know that if you're gonna, and I've talked about this on other shows, like doing Robin live action in the movies is really hard to do, because how you approach it, you've got to approach it a very specific way. So Damian is kind of a safe option, because you can just go with he's Bruce Wayne's illegitimate son with Talia and just kind of roll with it from there. It's not my ideal favorite Robin. But to hear what I'm really taking away is the fact that they are still going forward with a Batman property, that they are going to, I mean, because we figured there would be a DCU Batman separate from Robert Pattinson. I had kind of hoped they wouldn't announce a Batman specific property for this, that they would kind of treat him like the Hulk in the MCU, where he's always there, but he's just a supporting character. So to hear that they're still going to go forward with a separate Batman continuity is an interesting take. I don't hate the idea though. Like hearing it out loud, I'm like, okay, still kind of wish we weren't announcing this quite right away. And I think that may have more to do with the fact that it's just because it's Damian Wayne than anything else. But if there's still that level of confidence he has of like, this is a character that he likes. And who knows, maybe there's something James Gunn or whoever ends up writing and directing and can bring to the character of Damian Wayne that will bring me around. Henry Cavill brought me around on Superman. I was not a Superman fan before Henry Cavill. Justin says, LOL, I've never been a Damian fan either, but I know there are those who do, so I get why they're going with him as Robin here. We'll see if it can work. Yeah. Again, approaching live action Robin in general is really difficult because I don't think they've ever nailed it at all. So it's an interesting choice. This is the one that has me as a diehard Batman fan, has me scratching my head. It doesn't make me lose confidence or faith in James Gunn, but it's the one that has me going, okay. Jason Earhart asks, why is the Superman movie the only thing announced that has a hard date? I think it's because it's the only one that they have like anything written for. Like this is the only one that they've really started like any level of production on, because James Gunn is writing it himself. And is probably making the most. That's the one they're striving for next. Jason says, what's up with the Damian Wayne hate? Look at Titans. I hate that show. I hate that show so much. I think the live action Titan show is garbage. Find me on Twitter at Mr. Mike Shea.
Next up is a TV series called Booster Gold. Booster Gold is one of comics' really popular cult heroes. He is a fascinating guy. He's a loser from the future who uses future technology to come back to present day and become a superhero so that people will love him. It is basically the superhero story of imposter syndrome on an HBO Max series.
That is 100% true. That is 100% true. They've been talking about doing Booster Gold forever. At one point, I think Nathan Fillion was attached to play him, but Nathan Fillion's been attached to play like every fucking DC character known to mankind at some point. I know they introduced Booster Gold in like the last season of Legends of Tomorrow, which I didn't watch. I think it was Donald Faison played him, which is actually a really good choice. But yeah, I love the idea of just, like you can do so much light commentary on like commercialism and like social media influencer culture with Booster Gold and have it be hilarious and shticky and tongue-in-cheek. But also Booster Gold, like, pardon the pun, but has a heart of gold. Ultimately, he does want to be a hero. He wants to be a famous hero, but he wants to be a hero. If you haven't seen the episode of Justice League Unlimited about Booster Gold trying to do crowd control, it's a fantastic episode. Watch it when you get the chance. What do we got over here? Jason Earhart says, bring back Smallville Booster Gold. I fell off Smallville before Booster Gold got onto the show, and I haven't gone back to rewatch it yet. I keep meaning to. Justin says, I like Booster Gold. His storyline in 52 after Infinite Crisis was awesome. Good choice. And Soul says, Booster Gold 100%. Booster Gold would thrive on TikTok culture. So I'll be really curious to see what they do. But yeah, they've been trying to make a Booster Gold thing forever, and I'm glad that James Gunn is now saying like, no, like we're doing this, like let's stop talking about it, let's just do it.
One of my favorite comic book series from last year was Tom King's run on Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and so we're going to turn that into a big science fiction epic film. Now, Superman is a guy who was sent to Earth and raised by loving parents, whereas Supergirl in this story, she is a character who was raised on a chunk of Krypton. She watched everybody around her perish in some terrible way. So she's a much more jaded character.
Okay, I'm going to back up a sec. We just showed you. But okay, so Supergirl, we knew they were going to try to make Supergirl work really hard, especially post-Flash. So it seems like that is still kind of the plan. Here's what I love the most about this announcement is he name dropped specifically the Supergirl run from Tom King. I just got done reading for the first time Tom King's run on Mr. Miracle. Tom King's, which by the way, won like every fucking comic book writing award known to mankind. And now that I've read it like 2 or 3 times, I 100% understand why. Tom King is one of the most like underrated comic book writers. I like Tom King is such a good writer. And I'm going to go out like this week and try and find this run of Supergirl of his that I can run. Because if you haven't read Tom King's Mr. Miracle, like read it now. It's incredible. We're going to talk about it on We Are the Batman, which is a show I do with Matt Hasso here in the coming weeks. Supergirl is a really neat character that I think doesn't always get the respect she deserves, because a lot of folks look at her as just like teenage as teeny bopper girl Superman. There's so much more to Supergirl's character than I think she ever gets credit for. I didn't love the show with Melissa Benoist as a whole, but I thought there was a lot of good and potential in it. I thought Melissa Benoist was herself a good pick for Supergirl. So that they're still committing to having a Supergirl property. They've been trying to do this for a bit. And like DC has said, we talked earlier about how DC made announcements for their comics going in 2023. And one of the big things that DC said they were doing in the comics was expanding not just on having a Bat family, but on having a super family as well, because there's several different Superman titles running right now with both Clark Kent and his son that are both fantastic. So it seems like James Gunn is doing the same with his movies, as kind of trying to keep the movies in unison with how the comics are going, which is, if this is what we're doing, if this is the kind of stories we want to tell with our comics, let's tell them with our movies as well. And let's build out the super family as well. We got Jason says, interesting take on Supergirl. It absolutely is. Yeah, there's a lot of potential in this. Justin says, I've always loved when the focus on how she was raised Kryptonian versus Clark being raised by humans, how it gives her a different worldview. Laura Vandervoort's my Supergirl. Well, yeah, sure. I get it. But yeah, there's a lot of potential with Supergirl. And if they're going to go off a Tom King written thing, I want to find that Tom King run and read it, because Tom King, that man can write comics, let me tell you. We already saw a picture of what's coming next, but this is the one that when they made the announcement for it, I think I squealed because of this.
So she's a much more jaded character. And that brings me to Swamp Thing, the last thing we're going to talk about, a very dark horror story in the origins of the monster who is Swamp Thing. And although it's totally outside of the rest of the DCU, it will still feed into the rest of the stories. Anyway, those are the stories that I can.
All right, so that's pretty much the rest of the announcement there. So we'll go ahead and all right, they can back up. Yeah, that blipped my internet for a sec. Swamp Thing is coming back. We're gonna give Swamp Thing another shot. I personally loved the one season of the Swamp Thing live action series that we got on DC Universe when that was still a thing. I know that show got shafted by basically bad bookkeeping. It was somebody misplaced a decimal point and read some legal tender wrong, and that show got screwed, because that first season of Swamp Thing, that live action Swamp Thing show, is awesome. It is so good. And yes, Swamp Thing on Harley Quinn, what Soul Singer is fantastic. Love the 80s movie. Kind of like there is you dug the 80s movie from much. There's nothing wrong with that movie. There is nothing wrong. That movie is so quintessentially 80s, but it is so unapologetic about it. There's nothing wrong with that movie at all. But that DC Universe live action season we got, I think it's on HBO Max, as available to watch there too, is so good. And it's such a bummer we never got more of that. So I guess they're going to go ahead but it sounds to me like they're going to do kind of a reboot from that. This is going to be a film. I love the idea of let's take another hard attempt at Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing is such a cool character, and that's a character that opens up so many doors. Specifically, it opens up the door to bring back your boy Constantine, because Mikey needs more Constantine in his life. And if we're resetting things, can we reset it so that our next Constantine is once again Matt Ryan? Because I'll probably just have a string of never-ending orgasms if that's announced. You heard it here, folks, kid. You're here first, folks. So yeah, so those are the announcements that we have so far from James Gunn. It's a lot. There's a lot to pick apart here. I don't think any of this is what anyone was expecting. And I think that's honestly kind of fantastic. This subverts everyone's expectations on so many different levels, including my own. I cannot wait to hear more. And we know that this is only like tip of the iceberg too. This is not everything. This is just everything that they have that they can announce. There's probably so many things that they have planned that they just don't have all the nitty gritty little nuanced things in place yet to say it's officially on the books. I can't wait to hear more. Soul says Mike will jizz his fans if Constantine is announced. I will need to buy a whole new wardrobe. I can't even express it enough. So I have all the faith in the world in James Gunn. I am so excited for what he has planned here, because it seems to me he really just has a lock on what he wants to do. And like I said on Twitter, he is story first with this. He is not picking the characters people want to see or that he thinks people want to see. He is picking the characters that are going to tell the story he wants to tell. And with a title like Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, there is so much more potential for what's going to come. And I am so excited to hear it. So that's where I'm going to call it, because it's now 1:10 as we're doing this live, and I got to get back to work. But thank you guys for hanging out with me for about 40 minutes. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this stuff. How do you feel about Damian Wayne Robin? Because we all know how I feel about Damian Wayne Robin. Let us know down in the comments. Follow the show and everything on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at Mr. Mike Shea. Jason wants to know, does mean we're getting rid of Sandman? I don't know, because Sandman is an interesting property, and I think that's got some contract stuff tied up with it involving Netflix. That I'm not sure on, but that's also probably one of those things we'll learn more about later. But also because Sandman the series, the way it's been released, you have to remember that in the Sandman series, DC exists, because at one point we see a kid in the hotel room watching the Justice League cartoon on TV. So it's probably never gonna, and because of that, they also had to kind of change their approach on Constantine to make it as separate from like DC as possible. So it's probably going to keep going, but not be connected to anything. I don't know. We'll see. I got to get back to work. Thank you guys. Post down in the comments, please. Titans is not the best show on TV. It's one of the worst. And with that being said, I'm gonna see you guys later. Bye.